Hi, this is Trey Pass. Welcome to my review of episode 13 of Doom Patrol called Flex Metallo Patrol, or Flex Patrol. That's what the episode's called. And this is the next to last episode. There's only 14 episodes. I thought there was 15, but there's only 14 episodes left. So there's one more episode after this. Okay. Now this review, of course, is my other uh, uh, reviews of Doom Patrol. It's going to have spoilers in it. Okay. And this episode, basically begins right after the last episode where we ended, where Vic seemingly has beaten his father to death, or thinks he's beaten his father to death, because he's been manipulated by Mr. Nobody, okay, to self-doubt and stuff, and thinking that his father is hurting him when he really wasn't. And so he hence attacked him and basically beat his father unconscious. But we find out when this episode begins, Vic's at his low point, he thinks he killed his father. Of course he hasn't. And, of course, and also there's chaos running around in the ant farm because they basically released all, the flying, attacking butts and everything else, and all the prisoners have been escaped, and it's basically chaos around them, and they basically have to get out of here. And Cliff is imploring Crazy Jane to use her power, which she has one of her personalities has the power to teleport, and she's imploring him. But before she does, she grabs Vic's roommate, who, as far as we know, is just a bearded man, okay, who likes to watch TV. And they all teleport back to the mansion, okay? And then, of course, Crazy Jane teleports Vic to the hospital, and then, of course, Rita goes with him, okay, to be there for him, okay? And that's how the episode begins. Now, we get a little backstory on this character that's been, has been at the ant farm for a number of years, and we find out that he actually was a superhero back in the day. His name was Flex Metallo. And apparently, his power, they don't really kind of explain what his power is, but he apparently manipulate things with his mind and with his muscles and stuff. And he's like a beloved superhero. And I think this takes place back in the 50s, I believe. Yeah, he's like just a fantastic hero who's basically beloved. And he has a wife, and he seems to be adored by the public and everything else. And then we lately see, actually that he actually gets kidnapped. He gets by the Bureau of the Unusual, I guess that's it, right? Of Normalcy, Bureau of Normalcy, that's the name of it. Okay, and taken to the ant farm, okay, because of his power set. And then we find out, while Vic's in the hospital, watching over his father, and Rita is trying to convince him to put the microchip back into him, grid, that'll help him heal and stuff, because Vic has that self-doubt that if he puts it back into him, he won't be as human as he was before. Okay, and Rita kind of gives him a pep talk and tells him, listen, we need you, Vic, we need you to be fully functional so it can help us, rescue the chief. And Vic still has his doubts, and he doesn't really want to do it. But Rita puts the ball in his hand literally and gives him grid back to him and tells him, it's your decision. And she goes off. And we also, at the same time, we have back in the mansion, we have Crazy Jane and Cliff trying to jog Flex Metallo's memory. They basically give him a makeover so he looks like he did before, okay, with the shorter hair and clean shaven and stuff. But he still doesn't have his memory back, and they're thinking of all these things to try to jog his memory, but nothing works, okay. And then at the same time, we also have Larry, who's dealing with the spirit, the negative spirit, being out of him, and it seemingly is literally killing him, okay, not having that spirit in it. And then we get flashbacks, which is what I love about the show. It's so much multi-layered things, and all things kind of interconnect. We get flashbacks while Larry is seemingly dying. We get flashbacks of him back at the ant farm, being experimented on and stuff, and how they separate the negative spirit from him, and he's basically in the room next to Flex Metallo, and Flex Metallo is literally with his power, he can rip a hole through the wall, and he's basically telling Larry, "Come on, we gotta escape. Come on, we can escape. I can use my muscles and my power, and we can escape." But Larry kind of doesn't want anything to do with that. But the negative spirit does. The negative spirit wants to escape and get out of here, and he actually can communicate with him. Okay, Flex Mentality, he can actually understand them, and they plan to escape. Okay, but what happens in the long run is that he doesn't escape because they basically tell him, the people at the ant farm say, listen, they show him a TV and they show his wife. They basically have his wife and they're basically going to torture her if he doesn't cooperate. And so he, reluctantly tells the negative spirit, "Listen, I'm sorry, but I have to." And he complies with the ant farms, but the people are there, and goes off to be, experimented on. Okay, and then we flash back, to the forward, to the present, where we actually, Jane and them, after trying everything to try to jog his memory, they come up with a plan. Let's get, and I didn't realize this until they brought her back in here. Back in 2 episodes back, I think, when they captured Vic and took him to the ant farm, they had a woman, an older woman, come and distract him. Okay, and that woman turns out to be Flex Metallo's wife, and that's where Jane goes. Jane teleports, grabs her, and brings her back, and that literally brings back his memory. And they have a brief little reunion, but it's only a short-lived reunion, because then she starts to disintegrate, and she starts to explain to Flex that they told me if I ever tried to escape or everything, they destroy me, and she literally evaporates in his arms. Okay, which is, really tragic. And and then of course, I forgot. There's one thing that happened at the hospital where Rita's waiting in the emergency room, and we have a special guest star in this episode, Ed Asner. He guest stars in this episode, and it's good to know he's still kicking around. And he actually plays a older patient in this hospital, and he basically kind of implores her to help him find his room. And they, and then they, they walk a little ways, and then they sit down and start to talk, and she basically goes into more of her backstory. And a few episodes back, where we kept hearing Rita have these screams of a baby crying, and then she kind of tells her story literally to this older man about how she used to basically pet girls to get movie parts when she was younger. Okay, and even though there was this one girl that basically got pregnant and had a baby, and that's the memory that kind of haunts her. Okay, but she kind of owns up to her past, and then all the things that she did, and everything that happened after. She got that one last part, by pimping out a girl, and how she became Elasti-Girl when she had the accident, when she fell into the water and mixed in with those wacky chemicals. So she basically owns what she did. She kind of owns up to it and says, I made peace with it. So she, and I had a feeling this was what it was. The old man, in the end, kind of turns out to be Mr. Nobody. Okay, and he actually, this was a test, I guess, to try to weaken Rita, but she owns up to it, and she survives the test. Where Vic, obviously failed it and attacked his father, she was mentally strong enough to resist the temptation to be of self-despair and guilt, and she owns up to what she did, and she goes back to Vic, and Vic, agrees to put Grid back in, but he said, "Listen, I can't go with you. I have to stay with my father." And she says, "Okay," and we're gonna go now. And then she goes back to the mansion, and then she meets back up with Larry, Cliff, Flex Metallo, and Crazy Jane. And in the meantime, before she gets there, Larry is basically literally dying, and the negative spirit wants to go back into him, but he says, "No, I gotta see if I can make it on my own." And he said, "Now, he basically tells the negative spirit, you can be free and go off." And the spirit literally leaves him, and you see Larry literally dying, but the spirit, it looks like he has a moment of reflection. Then he comes back and goes back into Larry, and Larry's okay again. And then that's when Rita walks in and tells him, "Listen, I figured out a way to find Mr. Nobody, okay? But we're gonna need everybody in on this, okay?" And everybody agrees for the chief. And they, and then it doesn't quite go off. I thought it was gonna go off then, but then we flash to Mr. Nobody, and Mr. Nobody is excuse me, in his nowhere area, wherever that is. He's literally looking at a picture of the Doom Patrol and saying, "Listen, now finally a team I can get behind," which is funny. And he's wearing DC merchandise and everything else, and that looks absolutely hilarious. He literally goes up to the picture of the Doom Patrol and takes out the face of Cyborg and said, "Come on, I'm ready." Basically, like he's been waiting for this, and finally, this is gonna happen. So we're gonna assume that next episode they're gonna confront Mr. Nobody to rescue the chief. So again, another great episode of the Doom Patrol. The characters and the writing is this. Again, this show is insane and crazy and really good. Okay, and this episode was no exception. I can't have kind of sad it's going to be just one more episode, but this show has been fantastic, and I definitely highly recommend it going forward. Anybody, definitely watch this series. This series is, again, the best thing on the DC streaming service currently. It is, to me, the best written thing. Maybe Swamp Thing will be equal. Hopefully Swamp Thing will be as good, because that's going to come up after. But this is definitely a great show and totally worth checking out. Anyway, let me know what you think of episode 13, Flex Patrol. What do you think of it? Feel free to leave comments down below. I have links to my social media in the description box, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I also have a link to my other channel, Plus Views and Opinions. Please check that out as well. And this is Trey Pastor saying so long and take care.